I would hate that. That is rude. What? I didn't know they fined people. That's insane. So today we're gonna check out a video called Americans Behaving Rudely Around the World. I think this is gonna be very interesting for a couple of reasons. I am fascinated by manners and etiquette and what people find polite and impolite. For example, I know in China, if you burp after a meal, people think it's the height of manners because it's like compliments to the chef. Whereas if you burp in most Western countries, it's considered quite rude. If you've never seen me before in your life, I'm Diane, I'm from Ireland, and sometimes I live in Spain, sometimes I live in Ireland, but I love visiting America and I love giving my commentary on America from a European perspective. Before we get into the video, if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe, that would be a wonderful thing. Otherwise, a terrible thing might happen to you, karmatically speaking. For example, you could go to put a cotton bud in your ear and then the ear will get jammed with the cotton bud won't come out. That would be unfortunate. So, you know, if you don't want the universe sending you bad things, like, share, comment, subscribe, or don't. It's up to you.
If you are American and watching this, you might take some solace in the fact that the Chinese are making the headlines these days as the world's most badly behaved tourists. The question is, are the Yanks really that bad? That's what we intend to find out. In this episode of the Infographics Show, American behavior is considered rude around the world. Fairly or unfairly are accused of it's being too loud. This has been an accusation going around for some time. Is it actually true? Well, a lot of opinions
They are loud.
seem to think so. There is no scientific evidence, however. A story published by the Huffington Post once blamed this loudness on the fact that awareness of how personal actions impact others seems to be a weak point for Americans in general. The loud Chinese tourist groups are said to be partly a result of personal space or lack thereof. But Americans have space, for the most part. Some people take American loudness seriously too. One cafe in Ireland made the headlines in 2014 because of a sign in its window, "No bus/coach or loud Americans." Thank you. This sparked outrage.
What cafe was that? What bar was that? An Irish pub in Waterville, Peter's Place Cafe in County Kerry. Well, Jesus. You can't be picky if you're living in County Kerry running a cafe. Jesus, that's terrible. Also, I've said before, I think the Spanish are louder than Americans. Spanish tourists are extremely loud. Interesting point about space though. I think that's very interesting.
But we might ask if all these quiet objectors have a point. American writer and social critic Hunter S. Thompson may have put the alleged loudness down to privilege, pride, and too much belief in personal power. But in America, perhaps making yourself heard is a-okay. Unfortunately for loud folks, in some cultures it isn't. What many tourists traveling in the USA don't realize is that tipping in some situations is not just an act of kindness, but due to low wages, the tips are actually expected. Not tipping in some situations.
Devastating.
It can also work the other way in other countries. Tipping can be insulting in some cultures, just as
I've heard that.
someone in the street and handing them $1 because you thought their shoes were tatty would be insulting. If Americans plan on going to Japan, for instance, they shouldn't tip. Rather, they should just be polite and not too loud. In a Japanese restaurant or using a taxi service, if you try to tip, you'll likely get the money back. Good service is something you deserve in Japan, and handing over money.
I really want to go to Japan.
Much of Asia, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, is similar, but the same goes for parts of Europe. In the UK, it might be okay to tip in a high.
You can tip in the UK.
Or quit at the barman in a traditional pub, and you'll likely create an awkward moment. Americans are often complimented.
I don't know if that's true. Now, if you gave a barman like an extra £1 or something, you know, just you didn't make a big deal out of it, you just put it on the bar, you wouldn't be objected to, but it's not the norm. Like in America, as I understand it, the norm in a bar is you tip for 2 rounds of drinks and then they sometimes give you a free drink for your 3rd drink. I've heard that. Have I had it happen? I don't think so, but I've heard that's the norm. Let me know below in comments if that's a real thing.
Being forthright and outspoken. This has also been called obnoxious. It just depends where you are. In much of Europe, especially restaurants in France and the UK, sending food back is quite extreme. The "customer is always right" adage doesn't work so well in Europe, a continent where, according to The Guardian, Americans have been dispatched from posh restaurants for asking for ketchup or salt with their hot cuisine. Surveys have revealed that 38% of British people would never complain regardless of the state the food was in. In Asia, a continent where loss of face is taken with the utmost seriousness, Americans should be aware that if they do complain, it should be done in a way that doesn't cause harm. You could try and say, "Hi, the food is absolutely delicious, but do you think you could put it under the grill for another 10 minutes?"
I would say that it would be done in a more tactful way in the UK than it would generally be done in America. In America, people are very direct, and that is appreciated. In the UK, it's more so appreciated if you dance around it. And in Ireland, we're just gonna say everything's fine, really, for the most part. I have noticed Americans are a lot more direct or picky about like what kind of food they get, and if it's not exactly how they want it, they'll send it back. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's just a different thing.
Online review community Trustpilot did indeed report that Americans are prone to grumbling, stating that a survey
Oh, I love Trustpilot.
the American propensity to complain.
I complain on there.
Editorial nature. There's a meme making the rounds in which tech billionaires Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg are complimented for their rather informal and unshowy dress code. Americans like to don a pair of flip-flops and a t-shirt now and again, but do this
I like that.
in a government office or at a house party in some countries, and it could be perceived as you insulting the person or people you are meeting with. In parts of the developing world, if you have the money, you are expected to wear the money, as some people can't be that fortunate. Never dress down when you have an appointment in Asia, and for women, remember that showing too much skin could be conceived as impolite. In Thailand, for instance, while a backpacker won't get thrown out of a government office for wearing shorts and a tank top, that person's breach of Thai propriety will result in them probably just having a harder time than other tourists in that.
Interesting.
They won't.
You gotta respect a country's dress code.
Bill Gates was mired in controversy after he apparently disrespected South Korean President Park Geun-hye by shaking her hand with his other hand in his pocket. We already know Gates
That is rude.
stand on ceremony, but his lackadaisical greeting was seen as brazen to the Korean press. Cultural difference or an act of disrespect, asked one newspaper, and Koreans took to social media to mount a show of dismay. Even
It's a little disrespectful.
there is an appropriate manner for certain occasions, wrote one commenter, but to most Americans, such an act was not an act of disrespect, but just being friendly or laid back. Americans value.
I mean, in Asia, as I understand it, I've yet to travel there, but I do believe etiquette is like a huge part of their culture. When I do get to travel there, I'm definitely going to take note of things that are considered polite and impolite, and I feel it's my duty as a person traveling to respect their cultural norms and follow their etiquette. I'm sure Bill Gates didn't deliberately have his hand in his pocket when he was shaking her hand, but it is a little disrespectful. Worthy of headlines, not so much, but maybe because of the people involved.
Individualism, while some other cultures value hierarchy, status, and conformity. Speak up, be who you want, says the American, while there's a saying in Japan that says, hammer the nail that sticks out. When in Rome, do as the Romans do is probably a lot more relevant to strict Asian cultures than it is to laid-back Western cultures.
Sure.
Late for an informal appointment might seem like poor form in the USA, and also in Northern Europe, but in other countries you are actually not expected to be right on time.
Yeah.
In Spain, for instance, being on time is not seen as such a big deal at all, and certainly something you shouldn't balk at. Being fussy about punctuality might be construed as being difficult offhand.
Yes, I have noticed in Spain people are late and it doesn't seem to be such a big deal. Brazilian people are the latest people I've ever met in my life. Like, they are hours late and that's just considered a norm. Like, when I'm meeting my Brazilian friends, I will expect them to come like at least an hour later than I ask them to come. Not all Brazilians. Like, I have one friend, Ellen, she's always on time. YouTuber, shout out to Ellen. In Ireland, people tend to be punctual. In the UK, they tend to be punctual. And in the US, I think it is considered quite disrespectful to be more than 5 or 10 minutes late.
In Thailand, they have what's called Thai time, which means being late for a date or dinner appointment is just accepted as the norm.
I would hate that. That is rude.
Turn up on time for a dinner party at someone's house, it'll be seen as you being rather pushy. The article compares it to being an hour early for dinner in America. Moroccans are equally laid back about time. According to some people, they simply don't concern themselves with the matter of punctuality.
It's just the norm.
Mexico, India, Indonesia, Greece, Saudi Arabia, Ghana, and Russia, but turn up late in Japan or the UK and you'll nettle someone's ego for sure. Maybe the most
Interesting.
is that in Brazil, where punctuality isn't a big issue, when they want people to actually be punctual, they say things like 3 p.m. English time. Academics state that there are monochronic and polychronic cultures, those that value orderliness and sticking to plans, and those that take things as they come. Making out in public is probably the one faux pas Americans need to understand. Kissing, or even hugging, in public spaces in some countries is about as shocking to people as actually having sexual intercourse in public in the USA. The general rule to follow here is just don't be intimate or over tactile with your lover in public all over the Middle East. In Dubai, a city that might look modern, kissing in public could land you in jail. In Indonesia, a kissing session in the streets could result in a fine of $29,000. The same goes for most Muslims.
What? I didn't know they fined people. That's insane. Oh my gosh. I thought they shamed them, but I didn't know they fined them. I've never been to the Middle East, but I had heard that they are very strict about like being tactile and public displays of affection and even like parts of your anatomy being on show. So interesting.
But also in non-Muslim parts of etiquette-heavy Asia, public displays of affection are generally outlawed in a non-legal sense. Holding hands might be acceptable, but anything that might provoke a get-a-room response in the USA would definitely be met with disdain. If loud noise
Get a room response.
in some cultures, getting it on in public could be a serious offense both legally and in the context of propriety. Always be sure to read the cultural do's and don'ts before visiting any country. Follow this advice and you will certainly have a better experience traveling around the world. To be fair to Americans, we might also remember that they could also be the ones upset at having their own boundaries breached regarding behavior. This could happen when the Asian person doesn't think twice about asking Americans how much money they earn, or asking their age, or telling them that they've put on lots of weight and look fat. Okay for them, impolite to the American. Or what about when the Spanish dude turns up 1 hour late for dinner and the meal is ruined? Or when that Chinese girl you started dating got upset just because you showed her some warmth and affection? With this in mind, do you really think it's fair that Americans are called rude or ugly?
I feel like a couple of things that are more nuanced are things like compliments. When you compliment somebody in America, they tend to say thank you, whereas an Irish person will tell you every reason you're wrong for complimenting them. We try to be humble. They pointed out there that the Chinese people would say to American people, oh, you're fat, or how old are you, and stuff like that. That was kind of interesting because, yes, I have noticed Chinese people are a lot more direct, and perhaps it's the language barrier, but to be fair, I think a lot more Chinese people can speak English than people who naturally speak English can speak Chinese. It's a much more difficult language. So to give them credit, maybe they were trying to be more tactful, but the language barrier got in the way. Anyway, that was a super interesting video. Let me know below in comments anything that you've come across while visiting another place in the world that you found to be rude or particularly nice and polite. Maybe something you wanted to bring back with you home. Shout out today to a couple of amazing people. These are the Karmic Goals crew. They are an amazing group of people. They support my channel in ways that are just essential, both from a financial perspective as well as just like from an emotional community perspective. I said community dorky there. Okay. But each and every one of these people are extremely important to the channel, and if you see them below in the comments, make sure you say boop so that you can show your appreciation. Boop. That's it for today. See you guys on the other side. Bye. Didn't work out as cool looking as I had anticipated. Does this look good? No, it looks tash. Okay, we're just gonna put that in there. Where's Chewie, you ask? Well, he was crying and begging for treats, so in the bedroom now.